Where are you taking people? That's right, your words, your communication takes people to some destination, either a destination that you are providing or a destination that you're figuring out along the way. Part of the C-suite advantage, whether you're in it or not, is to learn how to have greater excellence in speaking through providing direction. That's what we talk about in today's show.
Welcome to Advance with Mike Acker, the podcast designed to help entrepreneurs, business leaders, and professionals alike break through barriers by improving their practical leadership skills and increasing confidence in speaking. Your host is a best-selling author, executive coach, and founder of the Advance Public Speaking School and Advantage Publishing Group, two companies dedicated to providing an edge for leaders. Find out more about Mike at mikeacker.com. Now here's your host, Mike Acker.
Now, this is the third one of the series on the C-suite advantage. And really the idea is this, that being in the C-suite is a great advantage. There's all kinds of different perks that come from that role, whether that's actually financial perks or whether it's just greater responsibility in the company's direction. There's perks to it. There's greater leverage that you have often in the C-suite advantage. But did you know that it's not just the advantage of having that position? You can have that advantage through learning how to improve your speaking. Yes, excellence in speaking provides a C-suite advantage. So whether you're C-suite or whether you're on your way there or whether you're just starting your journey, learn how to improve. Learn how to get excellence in speaking so that you can take advantage of that advantage. Now, here's the third one today. Today, we're going to be talking about how guidance and direction in your speaking, how to bring that into your speaking, will provide that advantage. This is a part of a series we're doing, so make sure that you subscribe and tune in, share, connect with me on LinkedIn and elsewhere. This is on YouTube, as well as every single podcasting platform that you can think of: Pandora, Apple, Google, Deezer, and many other places. Let's dive into it today. Your words provide guidance. When I was about 23, I went on a date with this girl and I just thought she was absolutely beautiful. I actually thought she was out of my league. So I thought we would do something fantastic and super fun. So I decided that we would go from Paulsbo, the area that we both lived in, and I would take her down to the beach. Now this is in Washington, so there's not a lot of great beaches in Washington, but I thought, heck, let's do this. So I got her in my 1983 Honda Prelude that every 5 hours or so, sorry, not every 5 hours, every 50 miles or so, the whole engine would just stop. And yes, it did several times on our way down to the beach. And we drove for about 4 hours to get down to the beach. Now, along the way, I thought I knew how to get there. So I drove, and I was just looking for the exit sign that said Ocean Shores. So I'm driving, and she said, "You know where you're going, right?" I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely." And then we see the signs for Portland. We had driven past, not only a little bit, like 45 minutes past where we were looking to turn, and we had gone a whole different direction. Now, this is before we had smartphones that had all the different information, but I landed in a whole different area. The mental map that I had of how to get there was wrong. In fact, it wasn't just wrong, it was non-existent. I thought I knew where I wanted to go, and as I started driving, I thought I'd figure out how to get there. I was wrong. As a result, we missed our reservation to do some horseback riding on the beach. And if you want to know what happened, the relationship didn't go anywhere. We just had a fantastic date, and that was the end of the story. Fast forward years later, I'm married, and I love my wife and my son. My son with my wife, not with that girl right there. Right? Make that very clear so that people are not jumping forward. Here's the moral of that story. If you don't know where you're going, there's a good chance that you're not going to get there. You're going to get off track. Likewise, in your words, if you don't know where you're going, there's a good chance that not only will you get off track, but you'll lead others off track. Part of excellence in speaking that brings about that C-suite advantage is having the ability to guide people with your words, to direct people with your words, to be able to bring about a clear roadmap of where you're taking people. Your words should not only be clear, which illuminate the topic you're talking about, but they should also be clearly directed. They should guide people to the destination you want to take people. There's very, very important for you to grab a hold of this, that your words guide people. Think about some of the greatest influences in your own life. Who are they? There's a good chance they said something to you. They spoke to you. They talked to you. They communicated to you. And it changed the course of your life. There's been a couple of those conversations for me, people who encouraged me to try something, like my debate coach, when I was struggling and being nervous in my own speaking. He saw something in me, he saw potential, and then he developed it and helped me bring it out. And as a result of his words and his encouragement and what he spoke and even what he wrote to me, I am doing what I am doing today. Your words matter because they direct your team. They direct the people you're working with. They even direct your bosses. They direct the C-suite. They direct the entire organization. Words are like the rudder that can guide and direct the entire ship. Think about it. A massive, massive boat guided by a tiny, tiny rudder. That is the value of your words. Your words direct. Your words matter. So how can you direct? Think about this. Tom Brady is one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. Many would argue that he's the absolute greatest. I wasn't a huge fan of the Patriots. Sorry for any Patriot fans out there, but not really sorry. And Tom Brady now is with the Buccaneers. And I'm completely interested in his career for the first time ever. Because, yeah, he did what he did there, but now I want to see if he can do what he did there with the Buccaneers. And in this season so far, it looks like he was the magic formula of the Patriots, because he's taken the Buccaneers and he's done something with them, and they might go to the playoffs as of this recording. Who knows what it will do as of this airing. Pretty exciting. Now, what do we do about Tom Brady? What do we know about him? That his ability, at least when he was with the Patriots, to run the huddle was extremely, incredibly clear. It was very great in his direction. He came up, and Bill Belichick talked about this, really with a word, a symbol or two that would clearly direct different people to do the positions that they needed to do. He would direct the entire team in this very short period of time with very great communication that was all aimed at guiding them to do the next thing. Part of their success was his communication, his speaking in a very short period of time to his group, to his team. That's the power of communication. You can win Super Bowls with not only a great product, not only great people, but with bringing them together through great communication. In your profession, in your area, in your life, in your family, in your friends, what is your Super Bowl? You can bring about that incredible experience. You can bring about that incredible outcome through clearly guided communication. How do you do that? How do you increase the guidance component? How do you increase that guidance outcome in your communication? 3 thoughts. When you're speaking to your team, when you're speaking to your contractors, when you're speaking to a virtual assistant or your secretary or your bosses or whoever it might be, your colleagues, the first thing you need to know to have this outcome of guidance and direction is to write out expectations. To write out expectations. In other words, write it before you say it. Write it before you say it. Every single time I do one of these YouTube, one of these podcasts, I write out the formula, the plan I'm going through. And every now and then I'll glance down it, but most of the time I know it in my mind. And every single time that I used to preach or speak at a conference, I write it. I write it before I say it. I want to work it out in my mind before I say it. Now, there's different ways that you can write it out. But likewise for you, when you're talking to your team, if you want to direct them and guide them, write out your expectations. Are you expecting people to do something from what you say? Are you expecting someone to feel something from what you say? Are you expecting someone to know something from what you're saying? What is it that you're expecting? Usually it falls into one of those 3 categories. You want them to do something, you want them to know something, you want them to feel something. If I'm doing a motivational talk, I might be saying, I want people to feel this way. I want people to feel empowered. If I'm doing a specific training to one of my clients and I'm talking about how to increase the engagement in their meetings, then I want them to do something. As I do these podcasts, generally I want you to know something. I want you to know 3 different skills, 3 different tips that are going to help you bring about greater direction in your speech. So what is it that you want? Write out your expectations of your audience. Sometimes I've listened to a CEO, I've listened to a leader, and as they communicate to their team, the team goes, nods, walks away and doesn't do anything. And then the CEO, the leader, the manager gets frustrated because they wanted their team to do something, and the team's walking away with something now that they are aware of, not even know. What's the difference? This person, in order to guide, needs to clearly write out what they want and then structure the entire speech around that. See, not only do you need to write it out, but then as you start speaking, and here's the second area you need to write, is stay on point and on purpose. Sometimes we write this out. I want people to know something, and then we get off point and off purpose. What if I had stayed with that initial story and just gone on to tell you about how big of a failure the drive was or what happened afterwards, and I could have entertained you, but you wouldn't have known anything. You would have been maybe entertained, maybe not. But really, you got to stay on point and on purpose. And really my point and my purpose is not just to share a story with you. That story is to illuminate this aspect of direction and guidance. So I write it out, and then I stay on point. I got to help you know. I got to help you understand. I got to help you realize how you can stay on point and on task so that you can have excellence in speaking, which leads to the C-Suite Advantage. So I got to stay on point and I got to stay on purpose. For you, when you go in, write out your expectations. What do you want your team to know? What do you want your audience to know? What do you want the people who are in the Zoom virtual meeting or Blue Jeans or WebEx or whatever it might be? What do you want them to know or do or feel? And then in your talk, don't go everywhere. You could go everywhere, couldn't you? In fact, how many different areas could I have branched into? And you might go a little bit off track like this for the point of being interesting, but you're snapping back to the main point and driving that point home. So you might go a little to the right, a little bit to the left, a little to the right, a little to the left, but ultimately you want to be staying on point so that you can get that original expectation across to them through your content. Okay, what's the third part? First of all, you want to write it out. Then you want to stay on point. You want to stay on point and purpose and task. And then the last one is follow up with paper. Follow up with email. Follow up with clearly saying what you just said. What happens after this podcast? What happens after this show? All of these notes that I'm saying end up in the show notes so people could follow up and clearly understand what I said, because something may have piqued your mind and you may have gone in a different direction, or you might be driving right now and all of a sudden you had to stop and you got distracted in driving as you missed it. So if I want you to act on this or know this, I need to follow it up by getting it to you. And the only way you can do that through the podcast and YouTube is by putting in the show notes and inviting people to check that out so that you can see what I just said. For you, if you're speaking to your team, then you have their emails and you can do that that way. Or you can give them a printed agenda if you're in person. Or if you're in a church, what do? You provide notes that people follow along with. I used to go to a church when I was about 18 years old, and the pastor would write out his entire speech. He would do a great job of speaking it to everybody. And then out in the lobby, you could pick up his 12-page paper of a sermon. And really, what was he inviting people to do? He's like, hey, this is what I want you to know. This is what I want you to feel and what I want you to do. And then afterwards, I'm going to follow this up so he can go home with you. And that's an incredible way to direct people. First, identify what it is that you're trying to get out of it. What's your expectation for this meeting? Second, staying on point, on task, on purpose. And third, following it up with written communication so that you're doubling up on what you just communicated to your team. Your communication directs people. There's a good chance that if you're not doing this on purpose, that you are leading them down a path that you didn't intend to go. You're going to Portland instead of going to the beach. You don't want to go to Portland, you want to go to the beach. So make sure that you are writing it out, that you are staying on point, and that you're following up. That's how you have excellence in communication and take advantage of that C-suite role, whether you're in it or not. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in each week. Really appreciate that support and the value that I see people getting from this. I've watched some of the videos and seen some comments and seen some people subscribing on YouTube. It's really cool to see, and some people reach out to me. So I just want to take a moment here to say, hey, would you take a moment to subscribe, follow, connect with me on LinkedIn or Twitter or Facebook. Also, feel free to email me or to set up a coaching call with me or just a short call with me to investigate. Or send me some notes about what would be helpful in this series or ultimately this series that turns into a book. If you give me feedback, there's a good chance I'll be done with recording this series, but I could put that in the book that's coming out in 2020. So thank you for being a part of this Advance with Mike Acker. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to Advance with Mike Acker, a podcast designed to provide an edge for leaders through improving practical leadership skills and increasing confidence in speaking. Mike is a best-selling author and business owner who has helped many leaders increase their skills and their confidence, propelling them to new heights in their personal and professional endeavors. Join an incredible group of professionals taking the steps to become better leaders at connect.stepstoadvance.com. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe so you never miss an episode.